Let's dive right in with a story you won't forget. Picture yourself sorting through a dusty old jar of change you've kept on the mantel for years. You pull out a penny, dull copper, just like countless others, only to catch something odd in the lettering, a subtle shift in the word one that seems to lean into itself. That's the moment a simple pouch of pennies morphs into a treasure chest worth thousands, and that exact thrill is what we're chasing today with the first gem in our lineup, the 1968 Lincoln cent. Back in '68, the United States Mint was churning out Lincoln pennies by the bushel. They'd been doing so without pause since 1909, and collectors often glance past those later, '60s dates as common. But every so often, a mint error or special strike emerges, transforming what looks like pocket lint into a coin that has seasoned collectors reaching for their checkbooks. Our journey begins with understanding how these humble cents came to be and why, out of millions, a few stand out as true rarities. Before we zero in on the anomalies, let's rewind to the moment of creation. In 1968, Lincoln's profile, the same one sculpted by Victor David Brenner nearly 60 years prior, was still being struck at three facilities: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, D, and San Francisco, S. In most rolls you grabbed at the bank, you'd find unremarkable Philadelphia pieces. But the San Francisco branch was also busy on its special mint set presses, creating coins intended as collector's items, not pocket change. These SMS coins feature a subtly frosted finish and sharper details, caught between the brilliance of proof strikes and the matte look of regular circulation cents. Their satin-like surfaces give a cameo to every hair detail on Lincoln's head, and SMS examples in perfect condition can command prices that make casual collectors' jaws drop. Now, let's talk about what really gets the heart racing: missteps in the striking process that leave visible traits on the coin, errors that shouldn't exist. The star of the show here is the 1968 double die obverse, often abbreviated DDO. During die creation, if the hubbing press misaligns slightly between impressions, the die picks up two offset layers of design. On the struck coin, this appears as a ghosted or shadowed second image, especially obvious in the date, the motto, "In God We Trust," and on the letters of Liberty. Some examples show crisp doubling on the T of trust, making it look like the letters are standing back to back. Others display doubling on the date's numerals. 1968 almost seems to wobble. These double dies slipped through inspection, and only a handful escaped into circulation before the mint caught on. Collectors prize these DDO examples. In good circulated grades, say VF30 to EF45, a modest doubling can fetch around $5 to $10. But once you climb to mint state, MS60 and above, the price skyrockets. An MS63 DDO might sell for several $100s, and a pristine MS65 example can reach well into four figures. The auction record for a top-tier 1968 DDO SMS penny? Believe it or not, one hammered for over $15,000 just a couple of years ago, thanks to extraordinary doubling evidence and flawless surface preservation. But that's not where the story ends. Beyond double dies, there are also repunched mint marks, RPMs, on the Denver D variants. Imagine the mint worker realized the D was too faint and punched it again, only slightly off-center. The result? Two overlapping Ds that create an echo effect. RPMs on small coins are subtle, requiring magnification to appreciate fully. Apprentices and die technicians generally caught these early, but a select few slipped past quality control. RPMs tend to be less flashy than double dies, but in high-grade examples they still command strong premiums. Think $50 to $200 in mint state, depending on clarity and position of the repunch. What about condition? In circulated grades, think coins rubbed smooth by pockets and rolls, you're more likely to find mild doubling that Tuesday market sellers might not even notice. Those are fun finds. You pay a few bucks, then clean up and hold until a specialist spots it, and suddenly your junk box treasure is a mini windfall. But nothing beats finding a perfect, original red SMS 1968 DDO or RPM, and red, satin finish coins in MS66 plus can soar into five-figure territory. It's the classic collectible confluence of rarity plus impeccable preservation. The origins of the SMS program add another layer of intrigue. In 1965, a copper shortage and public outcry over coin hoarding led the mint to suspend regular proof sets, replacing them with special mint sets meant solely for collectors. By 1968, SMS coins were the go-to collectible for enthusiasts, but they weren't intended to survive the hands of time. Instead, they were novelty strikes, struck less often and kept apart from circulation. When SMS 1968 pennies surface today, they tell a tale of a transitional minting era. Combine that history with a prominent error like doubling or an RPM, and you get a narrative that commands attention and price. Let's sprinkle in an anecdote. A dealer in Pennsylvania once stumbled on a roll of SMS 1968 pennies hiding in a dusty safe, bought decades earlier and forgotten. Inside that roll were 5 DDO specimens and 1 RPM Denver mint mark. The dealer polished up the coins, careful to preserve the natural patina, sent them off for grading, and walked away with nearly $30,000 for the lot. That's the power of errors plus mint condition plus backstory. Of course, you have to be mindful of varieties versus forgeries. Photoshopped images of doubling can circulate online, and unscrupulous dealers might glue on mint marks to create fake RPMs. Always check for consistent die markers, look for doubling on multiple fields, date, motto, lettering, ensure the doubling lines run parallel and have crisp ends, and verify that the coin's surfaces match known genuine examples. When in doubt, send it to a reputable grading service, Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, or Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, NGC, to get an expert opinion and airtight authentication. Here's where condition-based value variations really kick in. A worn, circulated 1968 Philadelphia penny with mild doubling might only sell for $10 to $20. That's still a sweet find if you've been spending quarters at the laundromat for years. But drift into mint state, where Lincoln's cheekbones gleam and all die details pop, and suddenly you're in the hundreds for MS62, low thousands for MS64, and up toward $20,000 if you land an impeccably struck MS66 SMS with standout doubling. Even RPMs follow a similar scale, albeit at lower absolute prices, maybe $100 for MS63, $500 for MS65, and potentially $2,000 or more for the rarest, sharpest specimens. But beyond dollars and cents, what really elevates the 1968 Lincoln penny is the thrill of discovery. Whether you're a seasoned collector who's spent decades on Lincoln cent varieties, or someone who casually shakes out a pocketful of change hoping for a lucky find, the mere possibility that a common date could harbor a rare mistake creates genuine excitement. Every roll of pennies carries that infinitesimal chance of unearthing a miniature time capsule, minted half a century ago, that slipped through the cracks. As we wrap up our journey with the 1968 cent, picture this: you're at a coin show, hunched over a dealer's wooden peak tray. A seasoned numismatist leans in and points to a penny under the spotlight. Notice the doubling on trust, they whisper. You lean closer, heart pounding. That moment, when recognition sparks, transforms a small copper disc into a tangible connection to minting history. And if that disc turns out to be an MS66 SMS DDO, well, you've just secured more than a coin, you've secured a story to tell. That's the kind of discovery that fuels collectors and keeps the hunt alive. And with that in mind, get ready to explore equally captivating tales behind our next two pennies. Each one carries its own quirks, surprises, and auction records that will challenge everything you thought you knew about what pocket change really means. In just a moment, we'll turn the page to our second featured coin, and trust me, you won't want to miss how an innocuous 1985 1-cent piece suddenly became every dealer's white whale. Our journey now takes us to an era when pennies looked utterly ordinary yet concealed some surprising oddities, the 1985 Lincoln cent. At first glance, these 1-cent pieces blend seamlessly into everyday change, just thin copper-plated zinc discs bearing the familiar profile of Honest Abe. But within the massive mintage of 1985, a handful of striking errors and unexpected varieties slipped through, turning what most dismiss as modern pocket change into prized collectibles. Back in mid-1985, the U.S. Mint was adjusting to a new penny composition. Just 3 years earlier, in 1982, soaring copper prices had forced the switch from solid bronze to copper-plated zinc. By 1985, production lines at Philadelphia, No Mint Mark, and Denver, D, were calibrated to strike over 7 billion of these lighter coins that year alone. Under the glare of high-speed presses, dies rotated through hundreds of thousands of impressions before being replaced, inevitably inviting defects. The key department to watch was die maintenance, because tiny cracks or misfeeds along the edge could imprint flaws so subtle they passed initial inspection but leapt out once collectors trained their loop lenses on them. Among the most celebrated rarities is the 1985 double die obverse. Much like its 1968 cousin, this error emerges when the hubbing press impresses the obverse die twice, each time slightly misaligned. But the 1985 DDO is far scarcer. You're unlikely to spot it on a casual roll hunt, only a few dozen are known in private hands. On genuine examples, doubling shines most on the motto, "In God We Trust." The letters appear as if they've been stamped twice, ghosting behind the primary inscription. Liberty's letters may show subtle splitting, and the date digits can look slightly fatter, as though each character carries a faint shadow offset to the right. Collectors prize this variant for its rarity and crisp presentation. In lower grades, even a small hint of doubling can command $50 to $100. But in mint state, with bold hub impressions and full, original red luster, prices skyrocket. An MS-63 DDO might trade in the low 400s, while a flawless MS-65 example has fetched over $3,000 at auction. The current auction record, set in 2023, saw a PCGS-graded MS-66 DDO selling for $5,200, a testament to how this modern-era error continues to captivate numismatists. But doubling isn't the only surprise hiding in 1985 rolls. There's also the famous 1985 wide AM Lincoln cent. The designer's initials, AM, for Adolph A. Weinman, appear just below Lincoln's shoulder in micro-engraving. In most coins, those letters sit close together, almost touching. On wide AM varieties, the letters are distinctly separated, creating a small but noticeable gap. This distinction traces back to two different hub designs used during die creation. One hub placed the initials broadly apart, the other pressed them close. While both were legitimate, the wide AM dies were produced in smaller quantity before being retired, making surviving coins relatively scarce. In circulated condition, wide AM specimens often trade for $5 to $10, an easy upgrade for die variety collectors. But in mint state, especially with original red surfaces, values climb steadily. MS-63 wide AM cents can fetch $75, and MS-65 examples may reach $400 or more. Auction records show that an MS-66 RD, red, wide AM pulled down nearly $1,200, driven by exceptional eye appeal and razor-sharp details. For dedicated Lincoln set builders, tracking down a full set of wide AM dates, including the elusive 1985, can become an obsession. Another fascinating quirk is the 1985 off-center strike. In high-speed minting, occasional misfeeds allow planchets to slip past the guide pins and strike improperly. The result, Lincoln's head can wander toward one edge, truncating part of the design and leaving a crescent of blank metal on the opposite side. While most off-center strikes are dramatic and clearly obvious, some in 1985 fall just shy of 5% off-center, making them harder to detect without comparison devices. These slight off-centers slip into pocket change unnoticed, only revealing themselves under close scrutiny. Collectors value off-centers based on degree of misalignment. A mild 3% off-center might fetch $20 to $30, a dramatic 20% off-center can command hundreds. The rarer, broad-strike, off-centers, where the coin is struck outside its retaining collar, flattening the rim, are even more prized. In mint state, a 1985 Broadstrike Road MS-64 could sell for $400 or higher, while an impressive RD-MS-65 example might climb past $1,000. Every off-center strike tells a story of a momentary lapse on the mint floor, a fleeting chaos in an otherwise finely tuned mechanical ballet. Beyond mechanical errors, there are also die cracks and die chips to consider. Tiny hairline fractures in a die can imprint raised veins or blobs on the coin surface. In 1985, a handful of Denver minted specimens exhibit a distinctive die crack running through Lincoln's coat or cheek area, sometimes creating a spider web-like pattern. These ephemera start as nuisance strikes for inspectors, but for collectors they become unique fingerprints. Each crack pattern is one of a kind. Prices for notable die-cracked examples vary widely, from $10 in low grades to over $200 for sharp, bold manifestations in mint state. Let's pause for a moment to consider the practical side of hunting 1985 varieties. If you're shaking rolls at your local credit union, prioritize mint state red, MSRD, coins. The original copper plating on 1985 cents often retains vibrant red hues if uncirculated, making any doubling or wide AM imprint pop vividly against the background. Use a loupe at 5x magnification to check the spacing between the A and M, scan for doubling on the motto, and inspect the rim uniformity for off-centers. With patience, you'll amass a modest variety collection without breaking the bank. A memorable anecdote comes from a hobbyist in Ohio who unearthed a 1985 off-center penny while sorting through a batch of roll-purchased cents. He didn't realize its significance until a local coin club meeting, where a veteran member identified the misaligned strike. That coin later sold for $325, funding the hobbyist's next grading submission. Such stories underscore the thrill of discovery, proving that even a humble pocket coin from 1985 can alter a collector's trajectory. Of course, vigilance against counterfeits and improperly altered coins is essential. Some sellers may artificially enhance color or apply die-crack patterns using engraving tools, practices that undermine authenticity. Always compare suspected rarities to verified examples in auction archives or reference books. When in doubt, grading services like ANAX, NGC, or PCGS provide encapsulated certification that safeguards your investment. The cost of grading can be recouped when you sell, and the confidence of a trusted grade ensures top marketplace recognition. On the market today, demand for 1985 varieties remains strong. Doubling and wide AM pieces are perennial favorites among modern collectors, while off-centers and die cracks attract error enthusiasts. Auction platforms and online marketplaces list dozens of these coins daily, with prices reflecting condition, rarity, and eye appeal. Keeping track of auction archives can reveal subtle trends. MS-64 wide AM cents have crept upward in value over the last 5 years, thanks to growing interest in Lincoln die varieties. Up next, we'll unveil the story behind the 1970 Lincoln penny, a date that might look ordinary to the untrained eye but, as you'll discover, conceals some of the most dramatic error coins ever struck. Stay tuned for a tale of die clashes, mint mark mysteries, and the astonishing premiums they command. The final treasure in our trio hails from 1970, a year when Lincoln cent looked almost indistinguishable from its surrounding dates, yet harbored some of the most dramatic minting anomalies ever spotted on 1-cent pieces. When you hold a 1970 penny with a crisp strike and full red luster, you might not sense the storm of die clashes and mint mark mysteries hidden in its copper surface. That's exactly what makes this date so alluring. Beneath its unassuming exterior lies a world of rare double dies, repunched mint marks, and subtle varieties that challenge both novice and veteran collectors alike. In 1970, the Philadelphia and Denver mints were churning out Lincoln cents by the hundreds of millions, with Denver's D mint marks applied after striking. Production demands were high. Post-1968 coin shortages had prompted the mint to ramp up output, and plant floors echoed with the rhythmic clatter of presses. Die maintenance crews replaced worn hubs and dies on the fly, but amid the mechanical pace, errors slipped through. Most coins released for circulation display the familiar design with "In God We Trust" arching above Lincoln's bust and 1 cent cradled within the wheat ears on the reverse. Yet, hidden among those millions of standard strikes are remarkable deviations, starting with the phenomenon known as the double die obverse, DDO. On 1970's DDO, the recipe for rarity begins at the hubbing press. If the die receives two offset impressions from the master hub, the result is mirrored doubling that pops visibly on the coin. For 1970 cents, doubling is boldest in the date and the words "Liberty" and "Trust." In the finest examples, you can see a clear secondary outline to the 1 and 9 of the date, and the letters almost look like twin scripts, one slightly southwest of the other. What's truly fascinating is how few of these slipped into circulation. Estimates suggest only a few dozen to 100 exist across all grades, making it one of the scarcer modern-era penny errors. Value for a 1970 DDO scales steeply with condition. A modest, circulated example with soft doubling might still fetch $100 to $200 among error collectors. Once you enter mint state territory, say MS62 to MS64, the premiums multiply. An MS64 graded specimen can command upwards of $1,500, and the auction record for a top-tier MS65 example has soared past $10,000, thanks to razor-sharp doubling and flawless surfaces. Even minor variations within DDO examples, like differences in doubling direction or intensity, can influence price, so dedicated students of the variety track every die state and minor hub difference. Adding another layer of intrigue are the repunched mint marks, RPMs, found on some Denver pieces. Instead of the neat, single strike, D, beneath the date, a few coins bear faint echoes of a second, offset, D, left behind when the punch was driven twice. These RPMs are subtle, often only detectable under magnification, but they carry collector appeal because each repunch position is unique. RPM varieties on a 1970 D cent are catalogued by NOAA, Numismatic Obituary Association, and listed as RPM 001 through RPM 005, depending on orientation and repunch angle. The rarer positions, where the secondary D sits at a steep angle or overlaps heavy, can bring premiums ranging from $200 for an MS63 to over $1,000 for a smooth MS65. A third captivating storyline emerges from die clashes, where working dies collide with each other in the press, transferring parts of one design onto its mate. On some 1970 pennies, you'll find ghostly remnants of the wheat reverse, faint trunks or stalks, imprinted on Lincoln's shoulder or cheek. These die clashes reflect a stage in the mint's workflow when a reverse die misaligned and struck against an obverse partner without a planchet intervening. Collectors prize strong clash marks, especially when they form recognizable shapes, such as a fragment of the ear of wheat curving across Lincoln's bust. Bold clash examples in mint state can fetch $100 to $300, depending on visibility and appeal. Beyond these headline errors, there's also the small date versus large date variety to consider. Though less dramatic than doubling or clashes, the two date styles exhibit measurable differences. On large date coins, the digits sit taller and the P9 has a narrower loop, whereas small date cents have squatter numerals and slightly thicker strokes. While Philadelphia issue 1970 small date business strikes exist in large numbers, wide AM-proof coins from San Francisco embrace only one date style. Collectors assembling complete date and variety sets chase both small and large date business strikes, plus the S-Mint proof and matte SMS issues. Though small date versus large date business strikes trade for only a few dollars in circulated grades, pristine proof examples can exceed $50 in PF65, climbing to $250 or more in PF69. A lesser-known gem is the 1970 SMS, Special Mint Set, variety. Between 1965 and 1967, SMS sets replaced proof sets, but by 1970 the mint experimented with limited matte finish strikes to re-engage collectors. These SMS 1970 cents bear a satin sheen and fully impressed details, distinguishable from both business strikes and proofs. Their rarity is pronounced, only a handful of sets were distributed before the program was shelved entirely. A bold strike SMS 1970 penny in original red satin finish, graded MS67, recently sold for over $8,000, sealing its status as a top-tier prize for die variety enthusiasts. To bring these varieties to light, imagine sifting through rolls with high expectations. You pick out a bright red 1970 D, slip on your loop, and catch a whisper of doubling on the date. Or you spot the faint ghost of wheat on Lincoln's cheek and realize you've uncovered a dramatic die clash. Perhaps you rotate a cent and notice the mint mark repeats, 2DS slightly askew. These moments deliver a rush that justifies hours at the coin shop or weekends pounding pavement at local banks. Condition dictates value above all. A well-worn 1970 circulating cent with a small hint of overlap doubling or a stub of a clash might sell for $25 to $50. Uncirculated MS60 MS62 examples of basic varieties run $1 to $5, but error and variety coins in mint state command steeper prices, $200 for an MS63 repunched mint mark, $500 plus for an MS64 clash, and into the thousands for top-grade DDO and SMS pieces. Auction houses report that the finest known 1970 DDO in MS66 plus grade remains unsold, its rumored asking price surpassing $20,000 should it ever reach the block. Every genuine example tells a story of mint floor activity in 1970, the furious rhythm of hubbing presses, the human hands guiding punches, and the rare moments when machine precision faltered. Whether you're drawn to the artistry of doubling, the mystery of ghost strikes, or the precision of date and mint mark varieties, the 1970 Lincoln cent offers a fitting finale to our series, a coin that commands respect not for its face value, but for the extraordinary quirks it carries from the mint to your collection. As our exploration concludes, reflect on the journey from a humble jar of copper-plated zinc to a cabinet of numismatic marvels. Each penny we've examined, 1968's SMS and double dies, 1985's composition shift and wide AM mysteries, and 1970's dramatic doubling, die clashes, and limited SMS strikes, reveals how hidden tales of mint-era decisions, errors, and experimental programs can transform everyday change into prized artifacts. These coins remind us that history isn't only in textbooks, it can be held, examined under a loupe, and traded at auction. Keep your eyes sharp, your loupe at the ready, and remember that the next time you pour a roll of pennies into your palm, you could be on the verge of unearthing a small, lustrous slice of history worth far more than its copper content. Whether you're a seasoned collector or someone just beginning to scratch the surface of numismatics, these 3 pennies leave a lasting impression. Never underestimate the power of tiny variations, and always follow where the die takes you.